The Oblivious Left. Today I'll be discussing the left-leaning side of the political compass, both the authoritarian and libertarian side. Normally I would separate them into two separate videos, one video being on the authoritarian and the other being on the libertarian. But sadly, when looking at both the political compass of the libertarian side and the authoritarian side, you'll see the only difference being that the authoritarian is the most politically active. If I am to look at the libertarian side, they tend to seem to have similar ideas towards the authoritarian, the only difference being they are less politically active. Of course, to many they would say otherwise, but when you look at the fundamental ideas, they are mostly only done by violent acts, as you have seen in Ferguson and many other protests done by the left. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I apologize for any audio discrepancies or any shuffling of the audio. I will attempt to remove them so you may never hear them, but in most chances are you will hear me mumbling at one point or another due to this audio being recorded on a phone. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Apparently Nazism leaned to centrist left. So yeah, the left has a lot of dead skeletons they don't want to discuss, from, I believe you can say, Mao, Stalin, Hitler. Where exactly Hitler falls on that leftist, whether he's centrist left or far left, people aren't really saying. There seems to be a discussion. Some people say far left, some people say centrist left. I believe centrist left, since he leaned right on some issues. And of course we have Bernie Sanders, everyone's favourite little leftist. And in general, these are the main leftists you can think of. You can also think of Gandhi. But yeah. I want to discuss the Oblivious Left. I call them the Oblivious Left because when you look at the left, they believe in fiction. And the reason why I say that is because they believe in things that can never be accomplished. They believe in peace and imaginary rich men who live in pots of gold. They, in my opinion, when you look at left, you see them believing in the impossible. They believe that that this must be occurring, and that every rich guy, for example, if you look at Bernie Sanders, he believes that, maybe not specifically, but most of his supporters believe this, so do Young Turks and secular talk it seems. They believe that when you have a rich guy, all these rich men just take billions of dollars, toss them in a bucket, and just sit on that bucket for the rest of their lives, and that money never loses value, never gains value. And under that same logic, people like Warren Buffett, who they probably see as Hitler, Warren Buffett would literally be deadbeat by now if he didn't have that money. If any leftist had the money that someone like Warren Buffett had, then they would not have money, because you cannot be that dumb as to pull basically a Scrooge McDuck, because apparently most leftists actually believe that's what these rich people do, Scrooge McDuck. Put a bunch of money put all their money in a room and just never touch it. You can't do that. If I take $1 billion and I put them in a bank account and I put it off source, I'm not paying taxes on it, lovely. In 20 years that money will be worth nothing, because when an economic crisis comes along, it's all gone. Gone. Wrapped. Done. Pronto. It's gone, because inflation occurs. What used to be $20 at one point has become $200 now. That may seem good to you, like, hey man, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I can try handing in a $20 bill from 1950s and try and hand it in now, but, well, I'm not going to exactly get that 200% inflation value, because, well, you'd have to pawn it, for example. Or hand it in, you're not going to make money from it. You can't put money in a bank account and expect it to become something over time. You can look at interest rates, but when it becomes negative interest rates. The best way to actually make money is to invest it, and that's what every rich person does. When they invest in small business. They invest in big businesses, well, mostly small businesses, because that's where your money is at. If you put in big businesses, it's not worth the price. Stock's too high. It's not really worth it. It's better to invest in small businesses that are coming up, and then once they get up, then you sell out. Simple as that. That's what Warren Buffett did, I remember. He invested in a small business for a few years, I think a few decades. The stocks just kept going up, and he kept making money over them, and I think when a crisis comes along, he basically sells them out. He also buy bonds, stuff like that. And this is something that, anyone who's ever looked at money knows. It's very basic, and I don't really understand it that well, but I have this basic understanding. This is how it works. This is how everyone does it. This is how people like Thomas Sowell explain it. They explain it. It's pretty cut dry. It's not really... Of course, there's more nuance to it, but it's not that simple. It's not Scrooge McDuck level where you put your money in a big room and you just swim in it all day. You can't. And these rich people say like, well, of course, you look at these rich people, they all have super private jets, super fast cars. And what they're talking about is celebrities. They're talking about people like Justin Bieber, people like Beyonce, Rihanna, Jay-Z, Kanye West. And fun fact, Jay-Z's filing for... I think Jay-Z, I'm not sure. You can never tell the difference with these rap stars. I never even pay attention to them. But I think it's Jay-Z or it's Kanye West, one of the two. They're going bankrupt. They don't have money. Why? Because they don't invest. Most of them don't save money. Nothing is indestructible. Nothing is forever. And this is why we'll always refer to the left as oblivious. They believe that, for example, in socialism, or in communism even. In communism, the government owns everything. You don't own your business. They'll tell you you do, but in reality, the government does. Nothing is yours in communism. Everything is the government. In socialism, everyone is equal, so no one can be better. If no one is better, you can never, live in a good standard. When you look at capitalist earnings and you compare them to socialist, the lowest earners in a capitalist society is everyone's earnings in a socialist society. The poorest in America is the richest in Venezuela. You can say that in a society like socialism, we're going to be flying in outer space, as one person actually said. And in a libertarian society or capitalist society, you're all living inside a Mad Max society. No, I don't think they said that about capitalists. I think it was just purely libertarian. They believe that libertarian is Mad Max, that's anarchism. In a socialist society, everyone's living in outer space. That's bullshit. In a socialist society, you have millions starving from famines, and you have people killing anyone who tries to revolt against the government, because the government is literally taking anyone who works hard, kicks out their kneecaps, and takes the money from them. This is an analogy. I'm not saying that actually fucking happens. In a socialist society, there is no earning money and becoming famous, becoming super rich. Leftists, many of them believe in some huge welfare state and that everyone has money, that everyone makes money, and that if you look at the lovely little welfare state on the left, it's not helping, it's not working. It never has. For example, Medicare. That's what Obama got Obamacare passed, the Affordable Care Act, or PPACA, Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Bernie Sanders wants to pass for, I believe it's a single payer option. He wants to pass single payer option. To pass single payer option, everyone pays taxes for it. That's lovely. Yeah, everyone's paying taxes for healthcare they'll never use. Hopefully he doesn't do a really dumb thing. I believe some countries already have it like this. That private healthcare is illegal. And then again, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I've heard that you can't have private healthcare in some countries. And maybe I'm wrong, probably am. But that's absurd. I've gone to public healthcare. I live in Brazil where everyone pays high taxes, everyone has free healthcare. Have free healthcare for everybody. Go for the free clinic, you get free healthcare. Free healthcare. Everyone loves free healthcare. You know what happens in Brazil? There's a kid, a Brazilian football donated money to this kid, but he had a broken arm. He lost that arm. 8. You know why? Because he had to sit there for 3-4 hours to get his government free healthcare. What would be the socialist response? Well, at least he had it. Yeah, why do you think I literally have to pay $200 to get a second visit at a neurologist? Why do you think I have to pay $700 to get a checkup done? Why do you think I have to pay $1,000 to $2,000 just to get a mediocre private doctor? Without the government care, there wouldn't be that requirement to pay extra. It wouldn't be that extra amount that you get from competition. So there'd be more challenge for how much you make. The prices would go down, and that $700 checkup would go down to $200 checkup. The price will always go up if there's more healthcare being provided. Less demand, so they have to, When there's government healthcare, everyone wants demand, and I don't really fully understand it. I'm going to pretend like I do. But I understand the basics. I understand that if there's government healthcare, prices go up on the private sector. It's just how it is. If it has, you see the same thing in education. It's not a good idea to get leftist programs and to implement them, because when they have tried to implement them, it's not gone well. Never has. Maybe you can point to like one case where it has, and a few maybe even, but overall it doesn't. A good one to acknowledge is Canada's. I always say it wrong. Canada's a lovely little free college thing. That even I think they passed it as a right now, but I know in Canada there's a free college. It's not working out. It's not panning out. It hasn't. They've tried to get it. They've tried to make it work, but that is kind of a thing. You can't do what the US does and just write off debt. Just keep writing it off everybody else. Puerto Rico, write it off. You can't write off debt. You can try, but eventually it kicks you in the ass. In the case of Canada and their lovely little free college, eventually you can't afford it anymore. It's the thing about socialism. It will work, of course, but only for a limited amount of time. There's only so many goods in the world, and eventually you run out of people's stuff to take. You can take people's shit for only so long until eventually it's gone. So eventually that person doesn't have anything else to take. Or one worse, that person leaves before you can take anything. You can only do something for so long before it kicks you in the ass. The question is, how bad is it going to be? With capitalism, the kicking isn't that bad. It's the recession, the depression. Depression isn't always caused though by capitalism. It tends to be caused by government intervention, regulation, bullshit programs to take up a bunch of money from taxes. You look at a recession, I like to refer to recessions and depressions as the natural selection of the market. We have natural selection, which is basically you kill off the dumb, the poor, genetics, all that stuff. And then what does a recession and a depression do? It destroys the unvaluable. If you're not worth anything, you lose it all. If you're in debt, like in 2008, the people who went in debt for a house, got all those houses foreclosed, they got bankrupt. They try and pan it off as if it was the big bank's fault that they gave them these adjustable loans. Who do you think signed the contract for those loans? You did. You didn't read the contract. You, at least if you did, you didn't really care. You didn't know what you were writing. That's why they say always sign a contract. Always focus on what you're signing. Joe McAfee says even when it comes to programs on your phone, on your computer, read the contract. You're signing a contract when you accept terms and services. When you sign for that, read the contract, because when that kicks you in the ass, if you weren't paying attention, natural selection will decide you're not worth it. You're going to end up on the streets, either without a job or with a loan so big you'll be paying it off for the rest of your life. People think that these capitalists are all greedy scums, that these big bankers from the central bank and from all these, Wall Street bankers, they're all scumbags. They're not. You're an idiot, that's all it is. You can think that, hey, if they hadn't ripped me off of my adjustable loan, then I'd be okay. No, you wouldn't. You should have read the contract and you shouldn't expect someone else to cover your ass. If I come running up to you and stab you, for example, do I then complain that the government serviced me with a knife? Did the government let me buy a knife? Do I then complain, hey, it wasn't my fault, the government gave me the knife? No, you'll look at me and then you arrest me. In the case of the bankers, they were given the knife and they should be prosecuted for what they did. They got the knife and they committed the crime. They were given interest, they were given the ability to write off loans without result. This is 2008 recession I'm discussing. They wrote off the loans, they screwed many people over, and as much as Bernie Sanders and many other socialists on the Oblivious Left tried to say, they didn't commit any crime, they didn't do anything wrong. Well, they did technically, if you look at a moral standpoint. Maybe they did commit, and yes, they did help work to damage the country when it came to what they did, but we just shouldn't have bailed them out. They were fucking idiots for what they did. And if they did commit a crime that we can arrest them for, okay, prosecute them. Bernie Sanders is not the answer though to do that. Bill Burr, I'm going to discuss this in another video, which I'm considering calling the supremacist right. Bill Burr discussed that he's a pro-Bernie Sanders supporter, and many of the people are pro-Bernie Sanders supporters, not because they believe in his socialist programs. They are socialist programs, get real. It's not because they believe in that, it's because of some of the programs he does have. When you look at Bernie Sanders, he wants to bring Glass-Steagall, he wants to cut out politics money from out of politics, he wants to get it out. And he wants how long? And he wants to make lots of good programs he wants to implement. Work on our infrastructure. That's lovely. People like some of the good programs, but most of the people here, single payer healthcare, single payer this, and everything's gonna be free. I want free shit. And that's great. Can we pay for it? No. Can we say what is the argument? The argument is pay your fair share. Well, what is your fair share? 50%, 60%, 70%, or 90%? And what happens when with that 10% of my income that's still there, or that 30 or 40, 10% income that's still left? When I can't pay for my workers, when I have to lay them off and end up and people lose their jobs, are you going to call me a rich scumbag who's greedy? Are you going to talk down to me? Are you going to try and get me arrested for it? Are you? Probably so. But am I supposed to be some individual entity that just makes money and just doesn't fuck up? That cannot run out of money because apparently anyone who's a business owner is so big they can't fail, which is a bullshit. I don't remember the name of the company, but I know that there was a company that I think it had like 1 billion employees. It was all over the world, and it fell. Many companies before the ones we have now, these monopolies that used to exist way before us, they don't exist anymore. You won't even remember them. I can't recall specifically the name of the companies because that's how irrelevant they are. To believe that we've had Walmart since 1820s or some shit. GM Motors, do you think they had them back in the 1600s making buggies? No, they didn't. These companies have existed now because they're the monopolies of our time, but they can take up 1 billion employees tomorrow, and they can, even if they are trillion, doesn't matter. Eventually money runs out. Money isn't immune to change. Recessions and depressions occur. Negative profit rates exist. They're called deficits. Not good. They exist. And these oblivious leftists can keep saying that they don't, that these companies are impossible to lose, that they have these loopholes, but do you even understand what that means? Do you mean that they have all these deductibles, but you can use them too? The deductibles exist because you have hundreds and hundreds of pages of tax code that someone can literally go to a judge and say, I didn't understand the tax code, and you would actually just be given probation or community service. You'd be let go, take a fine, and keep on going. Guy did that, didn't pay taxes for 2 years. He just went up to the judge and said, I didn't know what I was doing. Paid it off, took a fine. I think he did community service too. Now he's good, normal life. We can keep saying that these people magically make all this money and that everyone can be happy, everyone can live like Scrooge McDuck, everyone can be flying in money, and everyone can be living in space on Star Trek. Like Star Trek. But that doesn't mean anything. The only way we'll ever go to this Star Trek world that anyone will have money is if we stop allowing ourselves to believe this bullshit socialism crap, because it doesn't exist. We won't have super planes, we won't have fucking spaceships flying around taking up thousands of people. We won't live in Star Trek under socialism. We can never do it. We've tried it many times. Venezuela is a good example of this. Greece is a good example of this. Nothing's changing. They're not getting better. They've gone to an all-time worse. Venezuela's gone. There is no Venezuela. In a decade, 2 decades, there won't be Venezuela. Wouldn't be surprised if we have a new country in a few hundred years. 100 years, if socialism keeps pressing on like it is currently, because apparently everyone is denying that Venezuela even exists, or that Venezuela is not socialist, it's something else. It's entirely different. Or we can say that it is socialist, but this is different. It's democratic socialism. And if that democratic socialism comes over to other countries, then, yeah, tough shit. If it goes badly, then, yeah, tough shit again, you know? What the fuck can we do? Well, we gotta stop accepting it. We gotta stop saying it's different. We gotta stop saying, like I said in the last video, you can't deny something under the argument that it's different this time. It's not. It's the same. We can't deny that. We have to look at things from an objective point of view and we need to stop lying to ourselves. The Oblivious Left, you need to kind of grow up and stop living in Fantasyland. Stop watching your SpongeBob cartoons, your Ren and Stimpy and cartoons where everyone can just sign where the president can just sign a piece of paper saying, world peace, pronto, done. All the black people are now living in harmony, no longer committing 50% of the crimes in the US while only taking up 13% of the population. That doesn't happen. Let's deny that. The Oblivious Left denies everything. They'll deny what will go against the narrative. They'll deny anyone who talks down to them, anyone who disagrees with them is the correct one. That's the complete opposite way. The left, they'll call you names, they'll talk down to you, they'll insult you, and they'll make you feel little. Did you even do anything, though? Yeah, you disagreed with him. That's the argument. You disagree with him, you're the bad guy. You're the enemy. And I've noticed this a lot over the year that I have been studying politics. More than a year now. Yeah, you can say that this has gotta occur. We have to implement socialism, but it's not gonna work. You can keep saying it will, but it won't. It's imaginary. It's a fantasy that we implement in ourselves when we're kids. We look at these Scrooge McDucks of the world and we think to ourselves, they must exist. They must be everyone. Everyone who's rich must be a Scrooge McDuck. That Scrooge McDuck wouldn't exist. He shouldn't exist. And if he does, he ain't gonna last very long. You can try and be rich, greedy, and living on your ass under these little oblivious leftists, but it wouldn't work. You can pretend, you can live in if you are rich, go ahead, create a golden room, create a room full of money. Come back to me in 50 years and say you used to have that money. Maybe even not 50 years, maybe 20 years when the next recession kicks in. Tell me that money's worth anything. Tell me that you have any money left. Try to tell me that you can even pay the bills. Because the great thing about recessions is that inflation tends to kick in around that time. It's a way to combat, the recession. When this recession gets big, it's not pretty. Prices go up. You start spending more money than you're making. And if you have all that money in a big room, you aren't going to be making any money to spend. That's why you have investments. People think Donald Trump makes billions. I read a leftist actually say this, that Donald Trump makes $10 billion every month. No, not even a month. He said second. It's 10 minutes actually. I'm gonna pull up the picture now. In 10 minutes, apparently Donald Trump makes $1 billion, and 100 in a day. Apparently, this man's a trillionaire, pretty much. Who knows the math behind this logic? In a minute, he said, by the time if Donald Trump could give all his money away, by the time I finish typing this, he already a millionaire again. And that's a lie. The most richest man in the world has $57.6 billion. Bill Gates having $57 billion. I believe that's the right one. I believe that's Bill Gates I'm thinking of. But they're not that rich. We think that they're trillionaires, but they're not. A company and a person has very different money. A corporation can have lots of money, but a corporation doesn't technically own any of that money. Technically, that money all belongs to the shareholders, the people who own the company, pretty much. That's the difference, and it's a complex narrative that you can understand if you take basic business class. Work and think. Stop being oblivious. Stop being the oblivious left. You are better than that. That's what I said in the last video, and I believe that's true. The oblivious left, you're living in Fantasyland. You're believing in something that cannot occur. And I have tried to explain this to a leftist. The answer tends to be something along the lines of, fuck you, you racist son of a bitch. Go fuck yourself and I'm gonna block you now. That's a leftist reply, in most cases. In other cases, they block you and you could pretend like you don't exist. Because they don't have an argument. There is no world outside of theirs where Scrooge McDuck doesn't exist. It doesn't compute. And that's not a good way of thinking. You can think more and you can be smarter than that. And if you have already closed this video because apparently I'm full of shit, then please prove to me how I'm full of shit. Then again, you just left, so kind of going to be hard for you to do that now, isn't it? You can shut down opinions, but you can't shut down facts. Stalin used to kill all economists who disagreed with his opinions. If an economist came to him and told him that what he wanted was impossible, he'd kill that economist. Because they were traitors. That's what the Oblivious Left do. You don't agree with them, they shut you down. You don't exist. Because you're a traitor. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Good night, and this is Pre-Social. Or good day, whatever you what time it is for you. Have a good time, and this is Pre-Social. Goodbye.